Right. So what we're going to do today is we'll discuss on the final APC interview, RICS APC interview, and how you can effectively get ready to face the RICS APC interview. So we have developed this presentation based on our experience. I've been in the process RICS APC process for like almost 10 years now. And currently I'm serving as a RICS APC panel chairman in Australia and Middle East. So I will try to use those experience with you from my assessor training as well as chairman training, all those experience, and probably I have sit for around 80 final APC interviews right now. And I'll share that whole experience to you, how effectively face the RICS APC interview and then become a RICS APC or RICS member. Now, so today we are going to discuss the APC process. What are the salient features of the APC process, why there's an APC process, and the case study and the presentation, final interview, how you can get ready for the final interview, what to expect during the interview, how you prepare yourself before the interview, and what are the resources available in RICS, especially for you to get ready, as well as to manage your especially mental and physical health. Yeah, because this whole process is sometimes can become stressful. So we need to make sure that we are managing our physical and mental health so that we can go to the interview in our prime, prime form, so that you can, express yourself really well and get passed from the APC interview. Right. In the first, we'll quickly go through how you can join RICS. There are two main assessment types that you can join to RICS. One is the associate assessment. So you can become an associate member through this process. So what will happen is this associate assessment gives you the opportunity to become a chartered member later. So if you have a 1 year experience with a relevant bachelor's degree, which is, if you are coming from the quantity surveying and construction pathway, then you should have a degree in quantity surveying and construction, or 2 years of relevant experience and a relevant higher degree, higher qualification, not a degree, but a higher qualification, or 4 years of relevant experience. If you're working as a quantity surveyor for 4 years without any qualification, even you can go to the associate assessment. Then chartered assessment. So chartered assessment is the completion of chartered qualification, and you can achieve that by, if you have a relevant experience like quantity surveying and an RICS accredited degree, then you can go through the graduate route 1 and 2 and sit for the APC and then become a member. If you have a 5 years of relevant experience and any bachelor's degree, again there's a pathway we usually call PER route. So there would be 2 steps. First, you need to submit the PER submission with your summary of experience and the case study, and then they will assess that from a different panel. And after their approval, they will allow you to sit for the final interview. Again, you have to submit the same submission or different. You can even advance the submission and then you can submit to the final panel. And there's another way. If you have 10 years of relevant experience and operating at an advanced level by seniority, specialization, or in academia, there's another pathway for the chartered assessment. But usually we will be using mostly these 3 pathways, with a accredited degree or with any other degree, but with 5 years of relevant experience. Right. So you can enroll at any time in your career for RICS. If you have a RICS accredited degree, then just after, even during your final year, you can enroll for the RICS APC, and you have to have a 24 months structured training and 96 hours of CPD record, and then you can face the final interview. And if you have RICS degree, accredited degree, and with minimum 5 years of experience, relevant experience, then you can go through a 12-month structured training and face the interview. Or if you have a RICS accredited degree with 10 years of experience, you don't have to go through a structured training. You can straight away go for the final interview. Or PR route. If you have a bachelor's degree with minimum 5 years of relevant experience, then you can face the interview as well. Yeah. Yeah. So that is the pathways usually available. So the assessment of professional competence ensures that candidates are competent and meet the high standards of professionalism required to become a chartered surveyor. These are a mix of technical, professional, interpersonal, business, and management skills. So why we have this kind of a assessment is, at the end of the day, after this structured training or after the APC process, we need to have an output, or we need to have a person who is a chartered member, who is always working in line with the ethics, and who will be upholding the profession as much as possible with, delivering high standard services. So that's why we, and then he should have a good personality and should be able to lead or manage teams. Okay, so the APC process is prepared in such a unique way that you will be trained throughout the APC process to come to that level. Yeah. So after you successfully complete the RICS membership, then you will be able to lead 47 teams, manage 47 teams, and work ethically. Yeah. And you will get a lot of recognition from the industry as well. Right. Now, there are around 22 professional groups. Sorry, there are 17 professional groups, but there are 22 RICS pathways. Yeah. So professional groups are, internally within the RICS, they have prepared these professional groups. So Quantity Surveying and Construction also have in a professional group. So they will try to, organize events, work towards the profession within their professional group. Yeah. Right. So there are a lot of RICS offices throughout the world. There are few global offices, and especially in the Middle East and North Africa, the head office is in Dubai. And you can search, if you go to the internet, or if you go to RICS website, you can get this information. And if you want to apply or ask any questions from RICS directly, you can use their contact information. Yeah. Now, why you need to do the RICS? Yeah. First, you will join a global professional network. There are around more than probably 130, 140,000 chartered surveyors worldwide. So that is a huge opportunity for you. You can first of all get a accreditation for your knowledge and skills, as well as you will be in a global professional network. And I have personal experience on this, because whenever there's a RICS chartered survey in a client organization or any other organization, they have a recognition to another RICS survey. So why they know that this person is professional as well as having a high standard of skills or competency. So that is very advantageous for you to have. Yeah. It's a professional accreditation. It will be a career boost. And you can be a all-round professional. That's the important thing. RICS APC process structured in unique way that it will give you the interpersonal or the PR skills to you, as well as the competencies or the core skills or technical skills. So that's why it's very important. You will become an all-round professional at the end of the day. Now, when to start? At any time of your career, it's better to start. Yeah. But if you can start early, that would be beneficial. But at any stage, if you can do the RICAS and become a member, that will give a lot of benefits to your career. How you can apply or become a member? First of all, you need to read the APC candidate guide. Now we have, we will give you the links to download these most of the resources, including the APC candidate guide, and it gives step-by-step guidance on how to how to follow the APC process and what are the stages of the APC process, how to submit them, what are the formats, all kind of information is there in the APC candidate guide. And before you start, you have to read that and get a good knowledge on that. So there are 22 pathways. Quantity surveying and construction is one of them. First step would be you will send your CV along with your degree, copies of your degree certificates to the RICS office, relevant RICS office, and they will assess and they will give you they will assign your pathway or the route. Sorry, the route. Then they will ask you to pay. Most of the consultant organizations, especially international consultancies, they pay these APC process fees on behalf of you. So if you're working in a consultant organization, you can get that money. Yeah. And then you have to select competencies. We'll come to that later. How to select the competencies. They have given some opportunity for you to select. Then there can be a structured training. If you have a RICS accredited degree, then you have to go through a structured training. And this structured training is very well used, as I heard, especially in countries like UK, where the candidate will be put into different projects, different stages of the project, so that he or she can get full competence or hands-on experience on different competencies. Yeah. Most of the UK-based consultancies also have their own structured training. And there's a online platform called ARC, Assessment Resource Center, which I think there's a small issue at this moment, but they will fix it for sure. And ARC is an online portal, so paperless, and you can record your activities, your submissions, everything can be done through the ARC. And when the assessment is done, the assessors and the chairman also will download the information from the ARC. Yeah. Right. Then after you do the structured training, you have to prepare for the final submission. So final submission includes few things. One is the summary of experience. That is, you record your experience against each competency. Then the CPD record, it can be 48 hours per year. And you have to submit a case study, 3000 word case study. I'll explain you what is case study and why it is important. And then you have to fill the application form. And you have to do the ethics module online from RICS. So that ethics module will train you in terms of RICS ethics, and then there would be assessment. After that assessment, they will give you a certificate. You need that certificate to attach with the final submission. And then they will allocate a timing for you to sit for the final APC interview. Usually, especially in the Middle East, they have 2 sessions per year. One is in November, the other one is in March, April. The exact dates can differ, but that is the timeline they will usually use. And you face for the final APC interview. We'll explain this in detail now. Now, how to select the competencies. Now, competency, what do you mean by competency? Competence means you can have a knowledge on something. But if you are competent on something, means you have the knowledge on that subject matter, you have the skill, and you have the experience. Okay? So all these three things together, if you have on some subject matter, then you can say that you are competent on that. Yeah. So likewise, RIC is required you to fulfill certain competencies to become a chartered member. So these competencies are a mix of a technical and professional practice, interpersonal, business, and management skills. Yeah, that's a good thing in APC process. So Content 7 construction pathway guide, I'll again give you this link further. There's a Content 7 and construction pathway guide which explains you all the competencies. Yeah, right. Now I'm going to brief that pathway guide. So first you have mandatory competencies. At the moment we have 11 mandatory competencies. Ethics is one. Ethics you need to achieve level 3 in the interview. I'll tell you what is level 1, 2, 3 quickly as well. But if you are getting ready for the interview, you know these things. But for purpose of everyone, I'll explain these level 1, 2, 3. So mandatory ethics you need to achieve level 3. Then you have health and safety, client care, and I don't remember the other one. You have to achieve level 2. The balance 8 competencies you have to achieve level 1. Level 1 means knowledge only. Yeah, right. So mandatory competencies are common for all the pathways. Content 7 and construction is one. I stated that there are another 22 or another 21. All of them have these mandatory as common. Yeah. Why they have these competencies are to develop your personal, interpersonal, and professional practice and management skills, business skills. Yeah. It's very important for you to advance your career. So it's common to all the pathways. Then you have technical or core competencies. These are the primary skills of your chosen pathway. Now, if you are applying from the Content 7 and construction, there are certain set of core competencies like quantification and quantification and costing of construction works, procurement and tendering, contract practice, project financial control and reporting, commercial management, design economics and construction technology. So these, out of these 7 competencies, you have to select 6. Yeah, and you can choose between design economics and commercial management. Yeah, other 5 are common. You have to take them, but out of these 2, you can select 1. Yeah. Now, if you're in the consultancy or client type of services or providing services, then you can choose design economics because that is for the pre-contract cost planning. The competency covers that. Commercial management is mainly focusing on the contractors Content 7 practice. Yeah. So if you're coming from a contracting Content 7 background, you can select commercial management. Yeah. So these are technical core competencies. And then you have technical optional competencies. Now there are around, I think, 6 or 8 optional competencies where you can select 2 of minimum is 2 out of them. You can select more, but it's better to select at least meet the minimum requirement because the APC process and the final APC interview is slightly difficult. So you need to get ready for that. And it's better you try to target the minimum requirement so that it's easy for you to get ready. But if you want, you can, if you're very conversant with some subject, you can definitely work on that. Yeah, right. So we have 3 types of competencies: mandatory, technical core, technical option. Now I said mandatory, you need to achieve ethics level 3, another 3 competencies for level 2, and balance level 1. Now technical core, you have to achieve level 3. Okay. Technical optional, you have to achieve level 2. Okay. Now level 1 is knowledge, level 2 is practice, you should be able to do that work. Level 3 is advisory, you should be able to advise. Yeah. Now if I explain in another manner, if you know how to drive, you have read a book, you understand the signage, So you can read the road rules, you know the road regulations and all. That is level 1. You have the knowledge how to drive. If you can drive, that is level 2, because you can practically do that. If you can teach someone to drive and explain the best practices and give him or she the insights on how to drive well, that is level 3. You can advise. So that is a difference. Level 1, 2, 3. Yeah, same. That's I think good example to explain what is level 1, 2, 3. Right. Why this happens? Okay. Right. Then we have so these are the competencies basically. Yeah. So you have mandatory competencies. Level 3, you need to achieve ethics. Ethics should be level 3. Level 2, client care, communication, and health and safety. All the others are level 1. And then the core competencies, you have to achieve level 3. So you can select either commercial management or design economics. Yeah, one of them. Then optional level 2, and they are around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 competencies. Yeah. Now, sometimes candidates you select, if you are selecting commercial management for the core, they might select design economics as optional. That's also possible. Or most of the people use select conflict avoidance and the contract administration, because contract administration has a relationship with contract practice. So when you study for that, automatically you will cover the contract administration. And conflict avoidance, you have level 1 already in the mandatory. So it's one level up. You need to study for the optional. So most of the people use conflict avoidance and contract administration, but there's obviously enough opportunity for you to select any other competency out of these optional competencies. Yeah. So the levels are level 1, knowledge and understanding. Level 2 is application of knowledge and understanding. Level 3 is praise and advice. Yeah. If you want to ask any questions, please raise your hand. Then I will explain you. Yeah. I mean, we can discuss, obviously, it's an interactive section. Right. So we discussed about the level 1, 2, 3 in detail some time back. Then structured training. This is not very relevant. I mean, if you're not from the structured training, but this is the 12-month structured training and 24-month structured training. I'll not go through in detail on this, and we will be emailing you these slides later. If you have not registered in our form, please drop your email to our chat at the end of the interview, at the end of the presentation. Then we will email these slides to you, and there are a lot of important links, resource links, so you can use them. You can use it as a stem to get a lot of resources from RICS websites. Yeah. Now this is a extract of the user interface of ARC, Assessment Resource Center. So this is my counselor UI. But when you are a student member, or you are a training member, you will have another small difference in the UI or the user interface. But you can record the CPD, ethics, competencies in this ARC online. Everything is online. You can attach PDF files, and the counselor will see this. And when you want to submit or when you want to approve as a counselor, you just go through all of them, approve them, and then you can approve the candidate as well. Only then the candidate will be recorded to the RICS that he is ready to go for the APC interview. Then RICS, after you submit the application, they will submit this information in the ARC portal to the panel. Yeah, they will select a panel and they will transfer this information. Yeah, to them. Right. So in the final submission, you need to submit a summary of experience. That is one of the very important documents in the final submission. Now, as we discussed, you have mandatory, core, and optional. So based on the competency, individual level, you need to write summary of experience. Yeah, probably like 100 or 150 words for individual competency, and explain what you have learned, okay, and what is your competency. Now, when you are writing level 1, you can explain your knowledge. But when you are writing level 2, you need to give at least one example of practice, because you are explaining your practice now in the level 2. Level 3, you need to give an example of an advisory level advice you have given on that competency. Yeah, so that's how you write summary of experience. And this is very important. When you write summary of experience, it's very important the English is correct. First of all, what do you mean by the English? English means your spellings, your grammar, and your punctuation. Yeah, should be correct. So because this is your homework, you have enough time to prepare the submission. So they expect you to get a high quality professional report. Yeah, so it should be in that manner you have to write. Yeah, it should looks like a professional report. And then the clarity should be correct. Clarity means the things should be technically correct, and when assessor reads that, he should be able to understand technically. Okay, so clarity is important, and the content should be enough. Sufficient content should be written in the summary of experience, because at the moment RICS panels are trained and being informed by chairman, especially for the fellow assessors, that you need to base your questions from summary of experience. Okay, so if your summary of experience is not comprehensive enough to ask questions, then what will happen is panel will go to the other checklist items in the pathway guide and ask questions. So it is your I mean, the ball is in your court basically at the moment to put as much as possible into the summary of experience so that panel can ask questions. Yeah. So level 2, you need to give an example of what you have done. Level 3, you need to give an example for the advice. Okay. And your summary of experience should be maximum 1,500 words for the mandatory, and 4,000 for the technical core and the optional competencies. Technical core and technical optional. Okay, I'll go through this quickly because if you're getting ready for the interview, for the upcoming interview session in November, you have already done these 6. But for I'm discussing this for the benefit of the others who is still in the APC process. And your CPD record, you will record like 96 hours of 48 hours per year record. So that should be gained in a structured manner. You need to explain how you have selected that. I mean, why, it should be structured as well as, diversified with your competencies. Try to cover as many competencies as possible. Yeah. Yeah. So that is how you need to write the CPD. I think there are a few questions. I'll take the question now, but there's a few questions in the chat. Let me try to read it. Yeah. Yes, Stephen. Stephen, you can unmute yourself if you don't mind.
Yeah, sir, I've actually already submitted my SOE.
Yes.
For preliminary review, but most of the areas I have not given an example for my area of practice. So will it be an issue or like?
Not really. The panel will ask questions on you. Usually they will give you the opportunity for you to explain. So by that time, it's better you get ready with an example for each competency for like level 2 and level 3. So that, I mean, usually the panel is giving that opportunity. It's better to have it in the documents, but if it is not, panel might give you the opportunity, then you can explain that. All right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Generally, when you're going to the interview, when you're explaining, it's better to use examples from your real life or real, practice, so that which will give you a lot of points basically during the interview. Yeli is asking who will arrange a structured training. Well, usually structured training should be given by the company, where you are working. But if it is not, you yourself can work on that. Especially if you have a accredited degree. The RICS asks you to do the structured training, and you can discuss with your counselor and try to do the structured training. But it would be very effective when you have the support from the company. Yeah, I'm not okay. Sherin, I explain you. I think Sherin. Yeah. All right. Thanks for that question. Ethics module. Now, ethics is very important. Now, RICS don't expect you to by heart ethics. I mean, you need to know the ethics really well. But what's more important is that you have that moral values, ethical values inside you. Yeah. And these days there's a guidance for the panels that previously we used to the chairman was the one asking the ethics question at the end of the interview. So candidates knows that when you come to the end of the interview, he or she can identify the ethics question separately, because it will be asked by the panel chairman. But these days there's a new guidance for the panels that ethics questions should be asked throughout the interview by all the panel members. Yeah. So these ethics questions can come in different way. Okay. You might think that it's a competency question or core competency question, but it can have some ethics embedded into it. So that's very important. You do your ethics module, but make sure that you develop those moral principles or doing the right thing. Yeah, those values in you. Yeah? Okay, you try to do everything as much as possible correctly. Yeah, ethically correct. Behaving ethically is at the heart of what it means to be a professional. It distinguishes professional from others in the marketplace. Now, how you distinguish yourself from a normal practitioner from a professional? From ethics. Ethics is the paramount important thing embedded within professionals. Right. So there's a question from Dabagamanna. CPD hours are counted after enrolling to APC. Yes. Your CPD hours would be counted after you enroll to the APC. Yeah. You are required to successfully complete the RICS ethics modules prior to final assessment, which we discussed. What kind of ethics questions are they asking? Okay. We might not be able to go in detail on the ethics questions, but I'll give you some idea how they ask in the questions at the later stage of the presentation. Now you are required to successfully complete the RICS module. Module includes online learning and online assessment. It can be accessed via your ARC portal, and your successful completion certificate will valid only for 12 months. Okay. And there would be significant emphasis on professional practice and ethics in the interview. So you should familiarize yourself with them. Yeah. Ethics is very important. Please note, you can be referred on conduct rules, ethics, and professional practice alone. If you demonstrate, or in very unlikely event, if panel finds out that your ethical behavior or ethical answers were not correct, they can refer you on that alone. So that's that much of what is that called emphasis has been given to the ethics. Yeah, so you need to be very thorough on ethics. I'll explain you how to get ready with ethics. Yeah, later. Right, case study is very important. I think most of you might have submitted already. Case study is a 3,000 words submission where you will select a project where you worked within the last 2 years from the submission date to 2 years. I mean, project doesn't have to be 2 years within the submission date, but the issue that we are selecting should be within 24 hours or 24 months from your submission date. And that issue should be a showstopper. Okay, like, I mean, if you don't give a solution for that issue, the project will not carried out, or project will not meet their objectives. So now for that issue, you need to give a solution, and that issue should not be a day-to-day one, like certifying a payment, assessment of variation, assessment of a claim, those kind of things which you do day-to-day basis as a quantity survey doesn't become a critical issue. Critical issue means something unique happen and then it is affecting the project's objectives in an adverse manner. Now, no one has a very clear answer and you have been asked to give a solution. So you use your competencies, your knowledge, experience, and try to give answers. Yeah. So you might get, 2, 3, 4 options to solve that issue, and you select out of those 2 to 4 options critically and what is that called? You have to compare those options, as well as you have to critically evaluate one by one as well. Yeah, and give the most viable solution or most appropriate solution to solve that critical issue. Now, all the options that you select should be viable, should be able to solve the issue, but you select the best out of it. But all the options we have selected can resolve the issue. So that's the important thing in the case study. Yeah. And from the case study itself, the panel can check whether you have the basics right and you have the competence and the experience right. Yeah. Yes, there's a question from Ashka. Yes, Ashka. If you don't mind, you can unmute and ask the question.
Yes, Mr. Manoj. I've got a question with regard to the case study. I did my first submission, and then there was a comment on the case study asking for prognosis, which means a likely outcome of the project. So this was actually included, and then I had it reviewed by several MRICs as well. I mean, chartered quantity surveyors. They confirmed, but I am not sure the documents are properly reviewed. This is my concern, because I had to go through a second submission, and then this was a serious comment from them that I must include a likely outcome of the case study after selecting the best option. So in this case, what would be the advice you would suggest?
Are you going through the PER route?
No, APC.
Yeah, APC, what is the route?
Quantity survey.
No, that's a pathway. I mean, are you going through the structured graduate route or PER route? I mean, do you have accredited degree?
Well, I don't have, and then they gave me, they put me through to a APC, preliminary assessment.
Yes. Okay, so that is a preliminary assessment route, PER route.
Route, yeah.
So in the PER route, there's a panel, specialized panel will check your submission. I cannot give a assessment. I mean, because I haven't seen the submission.
That's all right.
Now, what you can do is basically you have to submit it again. That is how RICs works. But usually, these panels are very experienced in the process. They have gone through like probably 50 to 100 or more than that submissions by the time they are reviewing your one. So I'm not sure what is the issue, but I'll give you the guidance. Now I'll explain you the guidance on how to do the case study. Things should be included there. And other than that, I know I cannot give clear answer to you actually.
Oh, well, I totally understand. Yeah.
Yes,
that's all right.
Sure, but I will give you the guidance on what are the things should be included in the case study, and check yourself whether you have done that. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
No, if you download the candidate guide, which is in these slides, which you can go download, or even if you type it in the Google RICS APC candidate guide, there's a separate page for the case study.
Yes.
Page 12 or something. It's very detailed manner. It has explained what to be included. I'm going to explain that now. Yeah. And before you go, when you are going to the interview, Ashka, it's a good question. You need to be able to assess yourself. Okay, that's what I'm telling to all my candidates. When after you get ready, when you get ready into the RICS APC interview, you should be able to assess another case study, because you should understand the case study really well. Because after you pass or become an MRICS member, you can be a counselor next day, and you should be able to guide another candidate for the case study.
True.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So that's why you have to you don't have to rely on others. You should be able to assess yourself the submission. Now, when I did the submission also, I did myself to that level, because you cannot expect usually from another RICS member. Usually they are doing a good job. I'm not saying that they are not, but they're also under pressure and they also have their commitments and all. So it's the onus is with you to check yourself really well, your submission, isn't it?
Yes.
Now I'll explain you how you can assess yourself.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you,
no
Mr. Manoj.
No worries. So this comes from the candidate guide. So basically, So basically, let me show you hand, Ashka, because then I can see others in there. Yeah, right. So the case study should have an introduction section where you will give an introduction of the project and your role. Okay. So I'm always asking my candidates when they are doing this submission, put a lot of pictures, graphs, and make it looks nice, without, putting a lot of text there. Yeah, because it will save some words as well as give some good appearance to your case study. But make sure that you are writing a professional report. So it should be looks like a professional report. Yeah. So usually you can use around 500 words for that. What did you do? What was your level of responsibility? Who were the stakeholders of the project, like client, consultant, contractors, and all? What was the timeline? You can have a simple timeline to show the project. And then you can show using this timeline when the issue was happened, and because of that, what happened. Usually when there's a project issue or critical issue happens, usually project tends to be delayed. Yeah. So you can show that delay or that impact using this timeline. You approach, what are the key issues you came across, what are the challenges, and how you explain the key issue. You can have 2-3 key issues, but it's better you stick to at least 1 or maximum 2, because each key issue will have number of options. Because you are let me sorry, we will shut down our videos if you don't mind. 1 minute. Yeah, right. So you can have 2-3 key issues, but the problem is your word limit would be a constraint. So better you stick to 1. I would suggest 1 key issue, or if you want, you can go for 2 key issues as well. Yeah. Then you explain what are the options you identified for that within approach, and if you want, you can even explain some options that weren't feasible. But you are not going to evaluate them. All right. All the options that you are going to evaluate should be feasible. Then your achievements, what happened? You have to logically and laterally, or critically and laterally, you need to compare the options and identify the best solution, and then give the solution. And then you need to show what was the outcome because of your solution, what happened to the project, whether it was successfully, project was successfully achieving that objectives of the project. You can mention that, and then at the end you can have a conclusion. So in the conclusion you can conclude what the whole process you did, and then you can have a reflective analysis, what you will do differently to avoid those kind of issues in the future. And then you can have Appendix A for the competencies demonstrated in the case study, and Appendix B and C and all. If you want to submit, if you want to attach any contract documents or anything, you can do that in the appendices. And make sure that you have to achieve at least one level 3 competency, core competency from the case study. So when you select this critical issue, it should be quantity survey and construction related, not an issue for architects or structural engineers or anyone else. It should be a quantity survey and construction issue. So how you can identify that? If it is within, if the issue is fall within your competencies, and if you can give an answer or solution using your competencies, then it is a quantity survey and construction issue, basically commercial issues, contractual or commercial issues. Yeah, I believe I managed to give you some kind of a guidance